Is Islam compatible with Britain? This is a topic that can be quite a lengthy debate question. There's a lot of terminology that needs to be dissected. What are British values? What do we mean by compatibility, for example? They're compatible if they're not fundamentally contradictory to each other. The view of Islam in the West, or at least by many people in Britain, is unfortunately quite negative. And why is this? Well, obviously, as a result of misinformation, which is due to the media preconceived ideas that they've formed. Now, I'm making this video as someone who's lived in the UK for my whole life. I'm a British Muslim and ethnically a Turk. Both my parents are first generation immigrants to this country. So I think that I'm in a very good position in terms of my personal experiences to talk about this. However, I think that, in politics, everyone has a right to say what they, talk about any issue as long as they're not being extreme about it. And unfortunately, in this topic, a lot of people with extreme views on both sides of the spectrum, of the political spectrum, chip in to give their opinion. Now, first and foremost, what are the fundamental beliefs of Islam? Well, if you've looked at a basic research of Islam, the 5 pillars, I'm able to balance these, and actually, it's not really a difficult thing. Really, this isn't something that's exclusive to Britain, but whatever country you're in, you have to balance your religious obligations with your life obligations. What are they fundamentally incompatible with? If you look at what British values are, things like the rule of law, tolerance of those with different faiths and beliefs. Islam, unlike what the media says, is actually a very relatively tolerant faith. Allah says in the Quran, instructs the Muslims to say, to you is your religion, to me is my religion. Allah says in the Quran that killing one person is as if you've killed all of mankind. One promotes tolerance towards different faiths and beliefs, and the other one actively shows that killing an innocent person, one of the worst, if not the worst things you can do. Critics of Islam that point to verses in the Quran that they claim makes it incompatible with Britain. Obviously, some of the British values I mentioned, but a lot of these are taken out of context. You could take anything out of context and twist it to fit a false narrative. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of the theology because ultimately, whilst the theology is relevant to this debate, this is quite a political, philosophical question. Now, a lot of the criticism, at least in the contemporary time, comes from practically people from Muslim backgrounds, unfortunately, being involved in a lot of heinous crimes. Not only are they an extremely small minority of the country, they're also an extremely small minority of Muslim people. But unfortunately, this is the power of the media, especially in this day and age with the internet. False news can spread so easily. As I said, this can be a debate that can be very lengthy and very in-depth. But in terms of the most fundamental things that I wanted to touch upon in this video, compatibility, I've shown that they are fundamentally compatible. A lot of Muslim people may not seem tolerant. Muslims, Islam cannot tolerate fundamental things being manipulated or being changed or being challenged because ultimately it's a faith with a direct revelation from God that contains things that are obligatory that all Muslims must do. This ironically relates to another British value, the rule of law, which I touched upon slightly before. Following the law, respecting the law. This is something that in terms of the Islamic law, Muslims are really good at, and actually you can find most Muslims follow the laws of the United Kingdom of Britain. As I've said, this can be a very lengthy debate because critics can bring some arguments to the table. But I feel like if I dissect every single argument now, it will make a very lengthy video. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video.